Welcome to the Shelburne Hotel. We're here today for the first of our Ardlinn Ibec Business Leaders Lunches. I'm joined today by the CEO of Ibec, McCoy, and Senator Neale Richmond, the government spokesperson on Brexit, and we're going to be talking all things Brexit and the financial implications on the Irish economy. I suppose the first one for you, Neale, as you're absolutely in the thick of Brexit currently, is who you think the next Prime Minister will be and what impact you think that person will have in terms of where we are currently around Brexit.
Yeah, I think the next Prime Minister, I certainly think Boris Johnson's going to win the Conservative Party leadership, barring some massive upset over the next few weeks. And the problem with, or maybe the upside even of Boris winning, is no one knows what happens then. What he's saying this week alone, what he's been saying over the last few weeks, does contradict itself. You have as likely a chance with Boris Johnson of him getting the current withdrawal agreement through Parliament as you have him pushing towards a no-deal scenario. And it's quite key when you talk about the Good Friday Agreement. Danny said, right, when the UK leave, whatever way they leave, they're still going to be our nearest neighbour, one of our biggest partners. Yeah. And it's actually through the Good Friday Agreement that we can maintain the level of political connectivity that any other EU member state will not have.
Yeah.
We will still have a unique in and say over British politics and British society and economy post-Brexit. And it could put us in a position, Brexit will be bad, but we will be the gateway into Europe for North America. But we'll also be the automatic gateway politically and economically for so much in Great Britain into Europe as well.
Have businesses on the island of Ireland properly prepared for a no-deal outcome?
Well, first of all, it's uncertainty, and that's the big issue. And, you know, a glib answer is to say when you're faced with uncertainty, it's not much you actually do. You need to have a realisation of the outcome before you can deal with it. So that which they can predict, I think a lot of firms have done that. But just the mere fact that the vast majority haven't done anything or appear to, doesn't mean it's not the right strategy. So when you're dealing with fundamental uncertainty, doing something is not always the right thing. Stand there can often be the best strategy. So I think, you know, there's a lot of companies that have had to make changes. They've done it, but the vast majority won't be in a position to tie up capital, make decisions as a realisation, because the probability still remains in the balance as to when it will happen, how it will happen. And I guess that, you know, the real issue is, yes, it may be no deal, but the real factor is the cliff edge. And so de jure is the case that no deal means there's no transition right now. But everything is possible, and I certainly know from my colleagues in Europe there's a real pressure to make sure as whatever outcome comes, there's a transition to it. That's the crucial thing for business. And in that context, I think going back to what Neale was saying about the election, I've no insights either of any significance here, but my gut tells me there will be a general election in the UK before there is a Brexit date. I'm not saying that will happen actually even in this year. I think there will be a delay to October 31st, but certainly my view is Britain will have a general election before they actually crystallise the Brexit decision.
What do we need to prepare ourselves for?
Well, we're into year 4 now. You know,
I know.
You don't have to, you know, you could have your whole working life potentially ahead of you in this kind of Brexit uncertainty at the rate it's going. I think the contrast, though, between what's happening in the Republic and in Britain has never been starker.
I know.
The scale of how this economy is driving ahead is really reflective on a statistic that not a lot of people have acknowledged yet. The median, the kind of middle Irish household, has now got 50% more income than their UK equivalent. So it's not even a marginal that we're ahead. This is substantially ahead. And the predictions are that the Republic will keep growing and a stagnating UK. That's a really significant historical moment in the kind of relationship between the two islands. And there needs to be an equalisation on these two islands for all kinds of stability purposes.
Yeah.
So it's really in our interest that Britain stabilises and starts to prosper.
I mean, realistically, Neale, do you see a scenario whereby there may not actually be a Brexit?
Yeah, like it's pure chaos, as I mentioned before. And you can go through the models of how Brexit is stopped, or indeed how Brexit's delayed, or how Brexit's brought on even quicker. But say the UK doesn't exit, somehow they decide to revoke Article 50, and indeed another referendum is held and passed. Firstly, I don't necessarily think another referendum that's held will give Remain a victory at all, but a big enough victory that this issue doesn't go away. You have to remember, with the history of British politics, the first thing that the UK did when they joined the EEC was have a referendum to leave it in 1975.
Yeah.
This has been something that is going on and going on, and I do think there is a massive commitment, unfortunately, in both the Conservative Party and indeed a solid rump of the Labour Party to actually deliver on the referendum. We have a lot of referenda in this country. We have some of them twice. We understand what the impact is and we understand the difficulty it causes. You're dealing with a country in the UK, the whole idea of political is alien, or a referendum is alien to their political system. So it's impossible to predict at this stage, but you have to assume that Brexit will happen. Brexit will be bad one way or the other. We just have to try and move to get the softest Brexit possible.
We talked about the withdrawal agreement earlier and whether you felt there was any wiggle room around that. I mean, your sense is that there's very little
it's not
negotiation.
It's a matter of fact.
Absolutely. Okay.
It's closed, and that's not just me saying that as an Irish politician. That's
the
absolute view of EU 27. It's been consistently reinforced. Where there is room for negotiation, as everyone's been quite clear, is in a future political framework that goes alongside the withdrawal agreement. The withdrawal agreement runs to about 585 pages. It's very deep, deals with the three key issues, including the backstop. But the political framework is only altogether 35, 36 pages. There is serious room there to develop, maybe to, I suppose, allay some of the fears in the UK, misplaced fears. But going back to the European stage, it's been absolutely certain that nothing has changed in the European frontier. We hear a lot of mistruths being put into the arena by British media, British politicians, British commentators. Unfortunately, a lot of that's just born out of pure ignorance.
And so just to finish then, Danny, you know, your point about obviously we need Britain to, the economy in Britain to prosper. How can we in Ireland work to, you know, enable that in some way, or can we?
Yeah, and I think we, you know, I lived in Britain in the 90s and has been watching the economies. Far too little acknowledgement when we talked about the Celtic Tiger. We thought this was only happening here.
Yeah.
The correlation between the Renaissance in Britain that occurred in the post-80s and, you know, what was really significant decades for Britain and Ireland were correlated because we're a joint production function. That Anglo-Saxon common law legal system, vibrancy in our societies, youth in our societies as well. You know, Britain are experiencing in their history their largest increase in population in proportion terms. So this is the real tragedy of Brexit. Both islands were in a global sweet spot. Now, Britain, remarkable globalisation success story, even down to their success as society in the Olympics. They beat China in Rio, not in London. In Rio they managed to do it. So that spillover of that dynamism from their universities, from the City of London and so on, it's such a great tragedy. So to your question is, we and the politicians said that once we get the withdrawal agreement, we will be the greatest ally to Britain to ensure that their place in Europe is cemented, and the hope that they will come back into an alignment in the bigger European family sooner rather than later. Great if they didn't go, that's still a possibility. But
or if they come back.
They come back.
If they come back, oh my God, so they haven't gone yet, we're already talking about the comeback. Okay, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Senator Neale Richmond. Thank you very much, Danny McCoy.